Hello and welcome to the third and the Dawn Football Show. I am Joe. With me is Cecil. As always, we are here to recap Week 3 of the NFL season and preview Week 4. The more that happens in football, Cecil, the less we think we know at this point with this season, but it's been a lot of fun so far.
Oh yeah, there's been a bunch of upsets. Storylines. It's the NFL season's back in full swing, and I'm excited that we're here talking about it.
Absolutely. Let's get it started right away here. We had last Thursday night football game was the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns in a game that many people probably wish they hadn't watched. It was very boring. Not a lot of offense. The defenses were good because the offenses weren't that good, more so than anything. The Browns end up basically winning by one touchdown, and then they get a kind of a BS touchdown at the very end, which made some gamblers very mad because of the spread. They went 29-17, but for all intents and purposes, this was like a one-score game and very, very close. For me, most impressed I think the Browns can be an average team with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. I don't think they can be a great team whatsoever, but they can beat teams like the Steelers at home on a short week and stuff like that. So they get the win. The Steelers, I think we've said a lot of what we can pretty much already say about them. Not having T.J. Watt is rough, and Mitch Trubisky is just not the answer.
Right, and I am one of those people who counted the pick six at the end of the game lucky because I have the Browns defense in some of my fantasy leagues, so that was a welcome 6 points or 7 points to end the game. So always happy about that. But yeah, it was a game where how much longer can the Steelers start Mitch Trubisky? Clearly, they don't trust him with much. They don't try to open up the playbook with him. All the weapons they have are truly underutilized. George Pickens had one great pass, but he only got I think 3 receptions the whole game. So it's not like they're including all these guys in the game plan. They're just kind of all running routes, and Mitch Trubisky throws whoever the first read is, or he throws it away because he doesn't want to throw an interception. So I think at this point, if you're the Steelers, you could keep riding this, but let's be honest, you're not going to get far in the playoffs. There's a chance they might make it. They string together a couple wins. There's 7 teams that make it now in each conference. They could swipe in as a 7th seed at this rate. That is a possibility. They started out 2-1, but that's not going to really set them up for the future very well. And eventually, they are going to have to start Kenny Pickett and try to develop something new if they want this team to be successful in the future. Because Mitch Trubisky in this offense is not a long-term solution. It's pretty much the same thing with like Ben Roethlisberger last year. They just don't have it on offense. They have a pretty good defense that can carry them in some games. And they're well coached, but ultimately, someone that can actually score a good amount of points. Browns, they have Jacoby Brissett. They won the game in the end. They have they have a lot of good talent on defense, on offense as well. But ultimately, both these teams will not be anywhere near as good as they could be if they had, a starting caliber quarterback at the helm.
Definitely agree on that. That's why some of their games are just not going to be worth watching this year, if we're being honest, especially when they're playing Sunday with other games on the TV, maybe 2 teams to avoid until maybe Deshaun Watson comes back and the Browns make a push late in the year. Let's get to the game we want to talk about here, Cease. The Bengals beat the Jets 27-12. I don't have too much on this game because I think some of the things that have been happening kind of just either have stayed or just were completely different in this game. So just to start, Bengals defense still played very, very well. Tons of sacks. Trey Hendrickson had a big game. They've been consistently good the whole year. The offensive line played better for the Bengals. Joe Burrow played better for the Bengals. And for the Jets, not a game we didn't really pick them to win. I don't think that we thought they were going to win, but some definitely some concerns with this team because Robert Saleh decided to not run cover 2 other than 2% of their plays after the Bengals had struggled with that for the first 2 weeks. Both the teams in the first 2 weeks had run cover 2 zone against the Bengals at least 30% of the snaps, and Robert Saleh was like, nope, I know what I'm doing. I'm not going to do that at all. I'm only going to do 2%. So just very odd game planning by him.
No, absolutely. There's a lot to be said about, stubborn coaching sometimes. You don't take what the analytics or what, other people are telling you. You don't listen to their advice as much. You go, this is my system. This is how we're going to do it. This is how we're going to play. And a lot of times it doesn't work out that well. There's a whole array of coaches around you as well that you should take knowledge from. There's tape on film for 2 weeks. You can clearly tell the Bengals cannot beat cover 2. You see in the past that they've been able to beat one deep safety a lot. So it doesn't make a lot of sense from the Jets' defensive game planning perspective, but, a lot of that does happen to go with a defensive-minded head coach who thinks, He can out scheme or outwit everybody sometimes. So a lot of that does go on Salah. But the offense for the Jets really didn't do much either. The Bengals defense really came to play. Trey Henderson was great. Logan Wilson was great in coverage there, picking off that one interception. But it's good to see the Bengals get a good win, one to begin with. There's still some things for them to fix. Obviously, the running game wasn't the strongest. I don't know if that is. It seems like from the tape I've seen, it's a lot of Joe Mixon not trusting the offensive lineman yet, or really feeling what they're going to do because he's cutting back or not hitting the hole the way he should because he doesn't know if the lineman's going to get to where he needs him to go or thinks he's going to go. A lot of that's chemistry. I think a little bit was Joe Mixon hurt his ankle. Samaje Perine, when they just started doing the simple, we're just going to run it straight up the middle, and it seemed to work pretty well for everybody. So I don't know if that's a concept that the Bengals just need to have more when it's not garbage time or what's going on there. But ultimately, the run game needs to get fixed still. But it was good to watch them also mix up some more passing plays out, direct under center. A couple run plays in the shotgun formation, just to, keep teams honest and not know what they're running. Because ultimately that's been the biggest knock on the play is that it's predictable, even not self. And that's that many times stale. And the Bengals, though, are in the right, took a step in the right direction here. They've got the Dolphins and say in the Dolphins game, it's going to be the most important 5 days of their season. If they can come away with another win on Thursday, their season's back on track. If not, we'll see. It's still going to be a very uphill battle, obviously. But ultimately, it's good for them to get some, good tape out there and feel like the offense can actually move the ball and score some points. And the defense is as advertised so far. For the Jets, there's just still a lot of stuff for them to figure out. I don't know if, Zach Wilson's going to make this team that much better. There just seem to be a lot of holes, and some of it seems to be ultimately just play calling. Because there's one thing I know is that the defensive line for the Jets is really good. They've got a lot of great players, and it shows a lot, especially in the run game for the Bengals this week.
Yeah, and one more note about this game, just Quentin Williams almost killed his defensive line coach at one point because the Bengals, I think it was the T. Higgins touchdown that got called back, rushed 8, and Quentin Williams almost killed the guy. And the rest of the game, they didn't rush 8 again. So Quentin Williams, won the battle against his defensive line coach, if anyone was wondering. All right, the next game up, we have the Texans and Bears. The Bears win 23-20. Notable things to talk about from this game because there's not many. David Montgomery goes down. Khalil Herbert steps in and plays very, very well. There's a lot of people who think he's a better fit for their system moving forward. We'll see about that. David Montgomery is day-to-day. But Justin Fields is not throwing the ball a lot, and people are concerned about him in the future and what he can do because they're not allowing him to throw the ball. He's not completing a lot of passes either when he is allowed to throw the ball. So just a little bit of concern there. I mean, overall, you're still rolling with this guy the rest of the year and everything. But the Bears are 2-1. But if they want to keep winning, they're going to need to throw the ball.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely some very concerning things in Justin Fields' game right now. It's not even just one. There aren't a lot of receivers on this team. There's not a lot of playmakers by any means. They haven't really set him up for success there between that and the offensive line. Their pass blocking is very bad as well. But at the same time, his accuracy, in some of these anticipation throws, has just not been there. He's throwing the ball. He looks like he's much more prone to just take the ball and use his legs to advance, the drive than he is to, make a hard pass and stay in the pocket at times. And, some of that happens when you're a young mobile quarterback. You can use your feet pretty well, especially we're able to do it all in college. So, I think there's just a lot of things going on in Justin Fields' game. And, I mean, some of it is him and his accuracy issues and his way to put the ball where it needs to be because he's got a strong arm. We know that. But ultimately, the Bears need to create an offensive situation where he feels like he can trust staying in the pocket and there will be receivers there. And part of that's going to take time to just develop more chemistry with some guys. And two, it's going to take some time to just upgrade their wide receiver core because, I mean, I get obviously if he's not throwing the ball anywhere near somebody, it doesn't matter who the receiver is. That's what happened now those years, but at some, sometimes these plays could be out of time because he just doesn't really have any mesh or flow with the receivers that are there. Up getting the win, obviously, here on some good defensive plays. A lot of that happens to do with Houston not being very good. Um, Houston's just, it's just not a good team. They played decently hard, which is surprising. Davis played a lot better over the last year and a half than I thought he would ever. But I mean, he's not the answer either. Nobody on this team is really an answer. You look at the running game. I mean, at Damian Pierce, they gave the ball a lot more to in this game. Rex Burkhead's your other running back, who I don't know who the primary back is. It depends on the game flow, it seems. And Rex Burkhead has been in the league for 10 years now, almost, it feels like. And, he hasn't really gotten that many starts for a reason. So, yeah, I mean, the Texans roster just straight up is not that good. The Bears roster is not good either, but at least, Justin Fields can make plays with his feet, and the defense has enough playmakers left to make some key stops and interceptions, and that was the difference in the game.
Yeah, you're right. I think the storyline from here is just watching Justin Fields and seeing if he can be that guy. They got to figure that out in the next little bit here, whether he can be the guy of the future. And the 2-1 start's good, but the passing will need to come, and he'll definitely be tested later on in the season. All right, a battle of 0-2 teams. The Titans ended up getting the win. They won 24-22. They scored 24 first half points, got up 24-10, and then they win the game because that's what they do. They got Derrick Henry. They pound the rock and they kill the clock. The Raiders are now 0-3. They have not looked good. Derek Carr has not looked good. Devontae Adams hasn't gotten going, and honestly, at this point, 0-3. All intents and purposes, you are out of the playoffs, especially in that tough AFC West. There's just too much ground to make up. If they make the playoffs, it'd be like one of the most incredible things of all time with just the division they have and everything going on.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, that Josh McDaniels hire as head coach is becoming more and more questionable, it seems like, every day. The Raiders are just, it doesn't seem like anything's working. There's a lot of defensive players that just really have not come together yet either. There was a closed-door meeting before the press conference after the game yesterday with Mike Davis. So, I don't know exactly what's said in that. I don't know if it was him just trying to sound out a voice of encouragement or just saying, you're my guy, fix it, or is it more of a you need to fix this ship quickly if you want to stay being the head coach of this team? Because, this is a team that made the playoffs last year. By the skin of their teeth, they made the playoffs, but it was a playoff team. They have a quarterback people say is, kind of at the end of the top 10 quarterbacks. I think he is. Some people don't. But, he should be a starting quarterback in this league. You get Devontae Adams, who's arguably the best receiver in the NFL. They've got a good running game. They've got some good pieces on the offensive line. The offense should be scoring more points. And the defense, some decent players as well. They got Max Crosby. They've got some guys in the secondary as well. But, they're losing key games. I think really last week that Cardinals game is much more glaring than this Titans game because, they were just up by so much. They just let it slip through their hands. The Titans in this one were in control pretty much the whole game. It's good to see Derrick Henry actually have some burst and, get some yards, not getting hit in the backfield as often. Also interesting to see how much he got used as a receiver, which is always great, especially if you're one of his fantasy owners out there. But it is confusing sometimes that when Derrick Henry's getting this much push, that they keep doing weird passing plays with Ryan Tannehill that are so ineffective at times. Derrick Henry could have maybe got 200 yards in this game rushing because it just looked that way. But for some reason, Titans just got away with it. I don't know. They're trying to just conserve him, which makes sense. But every time they do a lot of these pass plays with Ryan Tannehill, they just don't go very far. They're not very big plays by any means. They're getting as much, per play with a pass feels like as they do with a run. And that's not a good sign for your passing game, especially in the NFL in this day and age. So a lot of things to work on there. At least, they get that win. They don't end up being 0-3. They're 1-2. Right now it looks like the AFC South is up for grabs for whoever wants it. Once they start playing head-to-head, we'll see what happens there. Obviously, the Colts already lost to the Jaguars, but it's good to see Derrick Henry working, and then Ryan Tannehill in that offense. The receiving game really needs to step up if this offense really wants to win this AFC South or make the playoffs.
No arguments there. Definitely got to step up. Let's go to a game involving another AFC South team. Cecil, we said to stay away from this one if you were betting because had all the recipes of being something you would not make money on. I'm sure you did if you bet on the Colts, but the Colts win 20-17. The Chiefs are favored by 5.5, and just felt like a game that maybe the Chiefs would, struggle, even though there was really no reason to because the Colts had looked pretty awful leading up to this one. They are now 1-1-1. They played. I mean, their defense deserves a lot of credit for how they played. The offense still hasn't really gotten going with Jonathan Taylor, especially. But the Chiefs, this is about their errors too. They had a backup kicker in Matt Amendola because Harrison Butker was hurt. He missed a field goal. Chris Jones had an unsportsmanlike conduct to extend the Colts' game-winning drive. That's just a couple of things they need to clean up, and that's not going to help when they do that. Travis Kelce had a couple drops in the end zone. Just played sloppy football, and the Colts took advantage, even though it did not look like the Colts after the first 2 weeks were capable of that.
Right. Exactly. And I mean, you can't go on the road in the NFL and play sloppy like that. A lot of times you're going to be in a dogfight to the last drive, which is what happened in this game. You can't let drives extend, just like you said with Chris Jones' stupid unsportsmanlike penalty. I mean, you got to have the awareness of just the maturity. I mean, he's not a rookie. He's been in this league for a while. You got to know that the last thing you need to do, when the game is on the line, is commit some dumb penalty. I don't care what your emotions are. Get off that side of the field. It's not, because whatever it is, it's not worth you losing the game, because then you're going to feel really dumb. You'll feel much better if whatever the other opponent's doing or whatever's happening, you're going to feel much better after you get the win in 5 minutes than you are doing any retaliation, during the game. So dumb there. Like we said, the Colts, though, they're a team that seems to lose to random teams they shouldn't, and then beat teams they shouldn't really do. So, I mean, they did it last year as well. They beat teams. I think they may have beaten the Chiefs as well last year. And, that's what they do. They end up beating teams for some reason they step up after big losses, so that's good for them. I mean, they have that sense of urgency about them. They may very well just save their season, not going 0-2-1, especially after a terrible defeat against the Jaguars, which may not look as bad another week of the NFL season. But, I mean, there's some teams, you go get a big loss like that against a division rival, and you just don't come back early on. You just let that write off how you feel, how you practice, what you do the rest of the season, and next thing you know, you win 5 games. So good for the Colts not to do that. Chiefs, a lot of stuff they got to clean up. They are 2-1 right now, but they look sloppy in a lot of ways, and there's things they need to clean up absolutely, because this year's AFC playoff picture, as we all keep saying, is not going to be an easy one, and they run into the AFC playoff, there's a good chance they're going to be out pretty early.
Yeah, definitely. And let's just go right into a game that has 2 other AFC playoff teams. Cease. We have the Bills and the Dolphins. At least from what it's looking like so far, the Bills look like world beaters coming into this game. But the Dolphins are able to come back in the second half and win 21-19. Notable things that happened in this game: Tua went down with what looked like a head injury. It was actually a back injury where his back locked up, but he couldn't walk, so it looked like a concussion. Apparently got cleared to play, came back out, and didn't have his best game, but he made a really nice 3rd and 22 pass to Jalen Waddle on a drive to keep a drive going. That just, I mean, really showed how good of a passer he is. That's all I'm going to say about Tua and Tuanon this week. The Dolphins also had a butt punt where they kicked it off of the punt protector's butt. It went out of bounds for a safety to give the Bills 2 points. For the Bills, Ken Dorsey, the offensive coordinator, had a meltdown after the game that was seen on Twitter everywhere. And also, I kind of question their game planning, because it was a 1-possession game and they threw the ball 63 times against a secondary in the Dolphins that is pretty good. Seems like maybe they should have tried to run it just a tad more.
Yeah, and I mean, this has been one of the criticisms coming out of this game, is that the Bills are too reliant on Josh Allen, which a lot of ways sounds kind of weird considering he's an high MVP candidate right now, and he's your franchise quarterback. But basically, the meaning of it is, I mean, you can't literally every week expect Josh Allen to make crazy plays, and that's your offense. You need, especially as the season goes on, and teams are game planning against you. Like this game's a perfect example of that. If they had more of eat clock and get out of there and give Josh Allen just a little, just an extra second, even if the run game's not super effective, as long as it's effective enough for the team to not think Josh Allen's going to pass the ball or run out of the pocket. It could be a run play. That's sometimes a moment of hesitation is all you need to really, get your offense running even greater. That's why play action exists. And the Bills, I mean, Josh Allen's great. He's done great things the last year, like the last 2 seasons now. He is an elite quarterback in this league. Some people argue he's the best. But you still need to have a run game. You still need to be able to do situational football. You can't expect to go up against a division rival and, hang 3 points on them and win the game. You can't expect to just blow everybody out every week. And play ultimately, because most NFL games aren't going to be blowouts. They're going to be close. So they have some injuries as well. You can't not mention a Micah Hyde's out for the season, I believe. That's a huge loss for them. They're, safety. Ed Oliver was out, not as huge a piece, still a real piece on the defensive line. So, I mean, the injuries are starting to pile up a little bit for the Bills as well early in the season. Not that they'll be able to overcome it by any means, but I think Micah Hyde was definitely missed on a lot of those plays later in the game, especially that 4th and 22 play or that 3rd 22 play. It's always unfathomable when it happens. Someone's able to convert on a 3rd down that's over 20 yards. It's usually just get the ball to your playmaker. Which, speaking of the Dolphins, I mean, Tyreek Hill did well, but Jalen Waddle looked really good in this game. He's been having a great early, just like we said last week as well. Tyreek Hill being there, do whatever he wants, because so many people are worried about what Tyreek Hill is going to do, and Tyreek Hill is more of the straight speed and stuff like that, while Jalen Waddle is going to be more of a guy who's going to go over the middle, get some passes, and does have really good speed on top of it as well. So great thing there. Honestly, Dolphins got kind of lucky there with the butt punt didn't lose them the game, because it very well could have. Because, I mean, they got a safety with pretty much the game locked up, and the Bills having to do a touchdown drive basically, and then you do a butt punt. It's a safety tie, but to win the game. So there's some plays Josh Allen wishes he has back, all right, but I think this game's more about the Dolphins coming in and showing that they are a playoff team at this point. They should be expected to be there as the season goes on. Tua's doing well. They've got an elite wide receiver core right now. They've got a great secondary and some good pieces in the front 7 on defense. And their head coach really knows how to really get the most out of this offense. So congrats to them. And they are technically the champions. I think they are leading the AFC East now, believe it or not. And the Bills are in 2nd place. That might change, but these 2 teams are definitely going to be there all season long.
Always good to hear you say so many good things about Tua and the Dolphins, Cecil. Very excited for that game, for that division, to kind of see how it pans out after that big win for the Dolphins Sunday. For a game in the NFC North, we had the Vikings beating the Lions 28-24. The Vikings lines were tied at 14 at the half. The Lions scored 10 third quarter points. The Vikings come back late to win it. Kirk Cousins, pretty clutch. It was a 1 p.m. game, so he was able to be pretty clutch. Dalvin Cook had a shoulder injury and ended up leaving the game, so just something to watch out fantasy football this week, and maybe look at Alexander Madison on your waiver wire. But a game I think we kind of figured would be kind of a Vikings win and a close one, but I don't know, just not too much else from that game. Kirk Cousins was clutch and made the comeback.
Yeah, and I mean, I will give it the Lions and the Vikings here. I mean, the Lions, we didn't think had a shot in this game, but ultimately they played well and they were in position to win. But I mean, they couldn't hold on, and that's been the big thing on their defense as well. And on this, they don't have the pieces they need yet in Detroit to really compete and be a winner. They're a competitive team though, and the biggest thing that Dan Campbell's trying to figure out right now is how to close out games because it seems like that's one of their biggest problems is that people are getting back into games. You looked at the Commanders game the week before; they almost let them get back in the game to make it competitive. The Vikings, came storming back. Made the key plays when they needed to, and that's what good teams do. That's what playoff teams do. So the Lions still, like I said, they are a young team. A lot of there, and the defense is still trying to really get an identity ultimately. But the offense has been great for them. I mean, they are out of the gate. They're doing much better. They're playing very competitive football as well. I mean, all the games they've been in, they could have won. A couple of things would have bounced their way, or just one more drive, or just one more third down. Could have beaten the Eagles, maybe they could have definitely beaten the Vikings. So I mean, there's a universe where the Lions could be 3-0 right now. So, not saying that's probable, but they are a team that's going to stick with you, and they aren't the Lions of old where you just circle it as a win anymore. They're going to come out fighting. They're going to come out hungry, and I mean, there's a chance they can come out with a win most weeks.
Yeah, definitely an improvement over last year. We'll see how they keep it going. And for the Vikings, they have the London game coming up, so we're gonna have an interesting debate about whether that's a primetime game or not because it's standalone. But we'll get to that in a little bit here. All right, we have the Ravens and the Patriots. The Ravens go on the road and beat the Patriots 37-26. Mac Jones has a rough game for the Patriots, 3 interceptions. He gets hurt with a high ankle sprain and is going to have to miss, it looks like, at least a couple games coming up. This one's all about the Ravens, though. Lamar Jackson looks like a man possessed. He is passing the ball well. He's running the ball well. He is the leader for MVP, I think, at this point. He's done everything he's asked of him, and the Ravens are going to have to pay the man at the end of the season, Cease.
Oh, absolutely. There's one thing this team's doing. Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson. Andrews or Rashad Bateman had a good game 2 weeks ago. Not as much this game. I mean, he is doing everything you'd want from a quarterback of his stature. I mean, he is. I had to vote today who's MVP. It'd be Lamar Jackson. He's just been everything on that offense right now, and he's really everything on that team. Because the other thing I've noticed a lot of these games is the Ravens' defense has not been as good as it's supposed to be. I know whisper goes across the podcast here, but I mean, you look against they weren't really that great against the Jets. They definitely weren't good against the Dolphins. I mean, the Patriots scored 20-some points with Mac Jones and this offense that has looked not good by any means. So it's one of those things where it starts to beg question: is this defense as good as people always seem to talk about? They don't seem to be getting the pressure. The secondary doesn't seem to be making the stops that they're supposed to, especially with how many good players are there and how much they're all getting paid to be there. It is questionable with the defense at points. Lamar Jackson, luckily, has carried this team and dominated enough that it really hasn't become a big issue. But throughout the season, I mean, that could be a key point here, especially, you look at like the Bengals, if the offense gets back on track. I mean, that's something the Ravens really struggled with last year as well in defense. And a lot of the excuse was, well, they're hurt. And it looks like they've got more players back, and it still doesn't seem to be the elite result everyone's been expecting.
Yeah, definitely not. I think this game is going to mean a lot of things for several different reasons. One, again, Lamar Jackson kind of solidifies that MVP talk. Two, the Patriots are now going to have to go with your guy, Brian Hoyer, moving up. So we'll have to see how he does. All right, next game up, we have the Eagles beating the Commanders. The Eagles defeated the Commanders 24-8. Carson Wentz is bad. The Commanders' offensive line is bad. The Commanders' defense is bad, and the Eagles are good. That's all I got. Jalen Hurts is also in the MVP discussion. He's played well, answered the call. Devontae Smith played well in this game as well, but I can't add more to this. This is one team's really good, and another team's not very good at all.
Yeah, the Commanders got shown up as, the team they actually are. They had some good games early on, but they finally faced a really good team in the NFL, and they really fell apart at home even. So, like you said, Jalen Hurts was great. It doesn't look like anybody's going to – this Eagles team is just rolling through right now. So, let's see if they can keep this head of steam up throughout the year, and more importantly, if they can keep Jalen Hurts hopefully healthy the whole. Too not much.
Yeah, so the next game we have is the Panthers and Saints. The Panthers beat the Saints 22-14 to notch their first win of the season. Props to Laviska Shenault. The Jaguars had him, didn't want him. He goes to the Panthers and makes some big plays. To me, I'm not like if I'm the Saints, I'm not freaking out as much. Jameis Winston is clearly just not healthy. The offense isn't moving as well. And they got Chris Olave over there who has 147 receiving yards. I think the offense will get better. Just a tough division game when you have an injured quarterback.
No, exactly. And it was a hard game. And the Saints, they're going to lose some games this year. I mean, that's just very clear. They just, like you said, Jameis Winston is dealing with some injuries. Should he be playing right now? I don't really know. I think part of it is he wants to keep playing because he doesn't want to get replaced, or he's been, he's on the teetering on the edge of whether he's going to be a long term in the NFL or not, or just a backup. And he doesn't want that. I mean, he threw for a lot of yards. You'll give him that, but he threw 2 interceptions, and that's not going to work for you. So, I mean, it's a lot of the same Jameis Winston we've known and loved for years now. Can throw for a lot of yards, have a lot of touchdowns, but also a lot of interceptions. So he's there. I mean, ultimately, the Panthers, big play to Laviska Shenault. I think that really just kind of sealed the game and really took the wind out of the Saints' sails ultimately. Because other than that, I mean, it was really, Carolina just won from the beginning, and the Saints just really weren't able to recover and play their game, and that was the big issue. So this is one of those rivalry games where I'm not saying the Panthers are good or Matt Rule saved his job by any means. Only time will tell there. But there's just a lot of things, teams that are incomplete, and we just don't know enough about at this point or see how they'll develop as a team ultimately. But it is nice that Carolina did trade for Laviska Shenault when the Jaguars jettisoned him, basically. I was like, that round pick from 2 years ago. He was picked right after like T. Higgins was for the Bengals. And some people, including you, were super high on Shenault. I thought he was very good as well coming out of Colorado. So it was weird for them to just pretty much get rid of him. But, Carolina saw the same thing that we all kind of seen, and this game really showed it. So hopefully he gets more and more involved, because you get him in there. I think that'll give me another answer. Him, DJ Moore, hopefully will get more involved in this offense. That's going to be huge. But if you get Shenault, DJ Moore in there, along with Christian McCaffrey, you have the makings of a decent NFL offense.
Yeah, definitely. The Panthers have a lot of work to do with that offense, but at least Christian McCaffrey has stayed healthy. That's been huge for them the last couple of years, and we'll see if they can kind of do something down the stretch because of that, and maybe save Matt Rule's job. That's a big maybe, though. All right, Cecil, get up, take a victory lap here. The Jaguars beat the Chargers. You said the Jaguars could be a team that makes some noise in the AFC South. It certainly looks like they will at this point. They win 38-10. Trevor Lawrence ends up looking like the quarterback we thought he was. James Robinson is getting the ball running well. Christian Kirk looks like a good signing, even at his price that they paid for him, which was well over market value. So very, very good for them. The Chargers, on the other hand, obviously had Justin Herbert hurt for this game. He played through the injury, didn't look his best. Keenan Allen was out for this game. They end up losing Rashawn Slater for the year. They end up losing Josh Palmer for the year. Joey Bosa went down in this game as well. They are the team that anytime you think they're about to get good, they just get swamped with injuries. And it's sad because it kind of looks like it's kind of happening this year already, just 3 weeks through the season.
Right. No, absolutely. It is unfortunate because the Chargers seem to never catch a break with injuries. But, yeah, I mean, Justin Herbert did outlook himself. He definitely looked like he was a little more afraid to throw the ball downfield at times. Sure, he still had some long passes, but it just wasn't an overall great performance from him, and I'm not going to knock it considering the rib injury that was questionable whether he should even play. The other big thing from this team, though, is that the running game was basically non-existent for this Chargers team. So I can't really – you got an injured quarterback and you run the ball 12 times. And a lot of that seemed to be just at the end of the game. more than anything. So it looked like Sony Michel was starting to get some carries as well, kind of later in the game once it was kind of out of hand. But yeah, I mean, you got to figure out this Chargers running game as well. I mean, it's the same thing, knock on the Bills we talked about. You got to have a running game of some sort. You don't have to have something elite, but you got to have guys you can get the ball to. And Austin Eckler's great, in the flat. He's great to, throw a dump off pass to and can make a lot of people miss and make some moves. But somebody's got to run the ball between the tackles, and somebody's got to do something there because, I mean, a young quarterback needs a good running game at times, especially if he's hurt, because last thing you want is teams keying in on that rib injury because that is what is basically going to happen. Um, it just was a very messy game for the Chargers ultimately. It's not one that's going to define the season for them. Hopefully everybody can start getting healthier as well. But the Jags, they came to play. Trevor Lawrence had a great, game. Didn't throw for a ton of yards, but 3 touchdowns. Good red zone game as well. James Robinson has looked great, and Travis Etienne, looked great as well in limited, relief, and got some more carries at the end. They both look really good. So they've got those two, the receiving core, despite it being people like Christian Kirk, who everyone said they overpaid for, including us. I mean, they probably could have gotten him for $10-20 million less, but I mean, he's played really well for them. He's played truly like a number one in their system. Zay Jones is. They were talking about in camp how much rapport and ability he's built up with Trevor Lawrence is really showing early in the season. He's a sleeper if you're a fantasy guy. I've talked about a little bit, especially in like a PPR league. Definitely someone you might want to pick up. So I mean, they've got the makings of a good offense. I wouldn't say it's great by any means, but I mean, they've got players who can do all the right things. No one's just absolutely jumps off the page at you, besides maybe Trevor Lawrence with how big of a prospect he was coming in. But I mean, they've got some good things going on there, and I mean, the defense has come to play so far. They didn't let the Chargers score many points at all. I mean, they scored a touchdown in the second. They didn't score any points in the first, touchdown in the second, field goal in the third. That was it. They closed out the game. So good for them as well. They drafted a lot of defensive pieces in the draft, and it kind of shows. Ultimately, maybe they want to get some more sacks, so they sure got some pressure on Justin Herbert ultimately in this game. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, AFC South is up for grabs. The Jaguars are officially part of that now. It's a 3-horse race. Right now, I don't know who I'd really the one that's going to get it because each team has major flaws. And, I mean, the Jaguars are definitely the surprise there. But, I mean, the Titans, if Derrick Henry gets going, they're definitely in it, especially if they can just get Brian Tannehill out of the way kind of deal. The Colts, I really don't know what team they're going to be. I mean, they have a very good roster. They've got the pieces to be a great team, but are they going to be able to put it together week in and week out? That's been the big question the last 2 years. So, yeah, I mean, it could be any one of those three. If the Jaguars somehow win the AFC South at this point, I'm not going to say I'll be shocked. I would have been shocked before the season began, but I mean, they've been putting good games together. They've been competitive, and I mean, they've got a young quarterback who has all the tools to be a very successful, great quarterback in this league for years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be tracking the AFC South specifically this year just because of that. I mean, it could be the Jaguars, it could be the Colts who've looked worse than expected. The Titans have looked worse than expected. It's not going to be the Texans, but that's all right. The Los Angeles Rams beat the Arizona Cardinals 20-12. They take the early lead and kind of just bleed out the clock while Kyler Murray tries to make a comeback. Cease, it was a Call of Duty open beta weekend, so Kyler Murray had 0 touchdowns. Should have seen that one coming. For me, this is not a surprise. The Cardinals do not look like a good team, and they look like they have some really big offensive issues. And I don't know how to say this because the Cardinals have been good the last couple of years, but I think this is just another. They usually start the year off hot and then they fade down the stretch. It's looking like the fading is starting a little bit earlier this year. The Cliff Kingsbury thing still perplexes me how he's a head coach, but that's I guess a different topic for a different day.
Right. I think teams have just figured him out at this point. I mean, this is year 3 of the Kingsbury Kyler Murray experiment. So, I mean, teams know what they're getting week in and week out. The Cardinals don't have DeAndre Hopkins, which is a huge part of their game plan as well. I mean, he's just, an elite level receiver. at least Hollywood Brown got some more touches, got some more receptions, got more involved this week than he has in the last couple weeks. But Kyler Murray's just late on throws. They're just not doing anything on offense at all. Like it's just they're standing still almost. It feels like. The Rams are good, but they aren't as good as last year. They've proven that they are beatable. But the Cardinals just didn't take advantage of any of that. And I mean, the Rams offense really wasn't anything that crazy either. They had a big end around rushing touchdown for Cooper Kupp. Cam Akers scores a touchdown later in the game as well. It's good to see that he's getting more involved and they're getting away from Darrell Henderson again because Cam Akers is the better running back by far. So it's good to see him get more involved. I don't know. I guess maybe they're just trying to ease him back from the Achilles. But, I mean, the passing game and Matt Stafford have not looked great so far. That's a concern as well. It's starting to look like the NFC West, for as competitive and good as it's supposed to be, is starting, and we'll get to another game later, is starting to look more like are any of them really that great? The Rams are good. The Rams are going to make the playoffs, but, is anybody else from what we're looking at right now, or the Cardinals, or the 49ers, or, I mean, the Seahawks sure aren't, but, I mean, who knows? I mean, they could sneak in. Like we said, there is a pretty much two or three, like honestly, nobody in the NFC is really that great. I'd say the Eagles. Everyone else has not really impressed me by any means. The Rams are the best team in a division that hasn't looked great. NFC North, the Vikings and Packers are up and down so far. NFC South, we'll get to that game and the Buccaneers here soon. And the NFC East, you got the Eagles. And, we got some surprise teams. Cowboys lost Dak for a lot of the years. Weird NFC conference this year where if you're a middling team, like you could, the Seahawks now could make it if they just play consistent ball that getting this good amount of points and they can play smart defense. I never thought I'd say that, and I don't think that's going to happen, but that's where we're at right now with the NFC playoff picture because everyone just looks like they aren't good. They explosive. It's just a back and forth of a bunch of mediocre teams with very few at the top.
I would agree with that. I would think the NFC is pretty wide open, and I think these next few games we go over are really going to detail that. So, Cecil, you mentioned the Seahawks. They lose 27-23 to the Atlanta Falcons, and the Seahawks were at home in this one. They had a lead in this one, and they still just couldn't hold on. First of all, give credit to the Falcons. They finally used their playmakers. Cordarrelle Patterson had 141 yards and 1 touchdown on the ground. Kyle Pitts got involved this week, which was a big point of contention. He had 87 yards. And Drake London has looked good as a rookie. The quarterback play, the offensive line, and the defense are still somewhat questionable, but those guys deserve credit. And the Seahawks, they want to be this team that runs the ball well and does that, but they let Geno throw it a little bit more today, or excuse me, on Sunday, and it just didn't work out in the second half. They scored 3 points second half. They let the Falcons come back. This is a game that with the Falcons rebuilding and the Seahawks never saying die with the way they're rebuilding, at least from the outside perspective, this is one they got to win.
No, and you're absolutely right. I mean, the Seahawks should have beaten the Falcons here. They literally let Cordarrelle Patterson run all over them. It was tough to watch. I mean, sure, they had that big run, but, I mean, we're talking 41 yards on 7 carries for Cordarrelle Patterson, who's a converted wide receiver at the end of the day. He's done very well in his role with Atlanta, but that's what he was coming into the running back role. He's got pretty much moved there, and it's stuck so far. So, I mean, the Seahawks, their offense is a lot better than we thought it'd be with Geno Smith. It's not great. There's a lot of let's establish the run with Rashad Penny, who is actually doing decent so far this year, not bad. And, they still got Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf there to help Geno Smith a lot. They drafted an offensive lineman in the first round, so the offense has been okay. It's win a bunch of games, but like we've said, the Seahawks are going to be competitive. in every game they play because they just refuse to, open up anything. But their defense that try to get turnovers and fly to the ball and try to, stop big plays from happening. But methodically, they just will slowly lose a game because they just don't have that many playmakers. And eventually that big play is going to happen. And happened a couple times in this game. And I mean, the Falcons basically executed on all the opportunities they had. Marcus Mariota didn't have a great game by any means, but it was really just the Patterson show, featuring Kyle Pitts finally getting involved in the passing game and Drake London even getting involved. So that stuff needs to happen more. And, at a certain point, Marcus Mariota, if he's going to just only get, under 250 yards passing week in and week out, maybe you try out the rookie. I'm not really sold on Desmond Ridder. I'm not like a huge Desmond Ridder believer in the NFL by any means. But at a certain point, you gotta give the kid a shot if you're going to draft him high enough and think, put the quarterback of the future label on him.
I agree. I think it's only a matter of time before maybe they're out of contention that they do that. But you want to get the young guys in to see if they can play, and especially with this rookie class too. Like, all these guys are older pretty much, right? Like, Kenny Pickett's not playing for the Steelers. He's 24 years old. If he's not ready now, like, how much longer until he is ready? And Desmond Ridder was a fifth-year senior. And, Malik Willis was in college for a while, played at two different schools. Like, had a lot of experience at Liberty. Like, at some point, if it's not looking good, it's just weird that, like, they feel like these guys aren't NFL ready, but at the same time, they're older rookies too. So just something to, I guess, think about for NFL teams. I don't know. The next game up, we have the Packers and Buccaneers. Packers won 14-12. Cecil, we described that both these teams were not playing well coming into this game. For the Packers, Aaron Rodgers and Romeo Doubs looked good in the first half. The defense played very well. Tom Brady just didn't have many receivers available in this game. The offense has looked pretty bad so far this season. They've won some games, but it hasn't exactly been against the best competition. And I think there's some real concerns that even you noted early in the season when you said that they were just maybe not the team to pick for the Super Bowl. The Packers maybe not so either because they didn't look good either, but they got the win.
Right. I mean, the Packers, they came out early and scored, were explosive, scored that touchdown in the beginning. They scored, another touchdown later on as well. And that was really it for their offense, was those two big drives, and that was it for them. So, by all means, there's still a lot of things on this team that need to be addressed. Aaron Jones looked good running the play. They just really, at this point, if there's a trade deadline and there's some disgruntled receiver who's good, maybe the Packers should make a play to get him, because that's where this team is. Romeo Doubs has had a good game. It was good to see him get involved and see a young guy get involved, but at the end of the day, him, Lazard, Sammy Watkins when he comes back, of course, Kristen Watson is a project at the end of the day. He's got all the kind of measurables, but he hasn't played, at this fast a competition coming out of North Dakota. So, ultimately, this is a team that really lacks that dynamic big receiver element that a team like this, when you have Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback, really needs. So, I don't think that's something you can just magically fix internally in-house. I think they'll get better, timing, chemistry, all that builds over time. But, I mean, they just need someone who's a qualified playmaker at receiver. So, I don't know what that means. It's early in the season. I don't know of anybody being extremely disgruntled right now as a receiver that will actually, teams will trade to the Packers of all teams because, another playoff team's not going to trade a star receiver to the Packers. It's just not going to work because they know they're going to have to play him again then. But I mean, it's not an easy answer there. The Buccaneers, there's stuff that they just don't play super well right now. And obviously a lot of receivers are out. That was a huge issue. But I mean, there's just little things with the snap, the offensive line blocking for Tom Brady. Everything has just gotten a little worse this year compared to the last 2 years. And sure, there's always a chance Tom Brady puts it all together just like he always does. The magic, the playoffs. He gets his team believing that they can win a Super Bowl at any time. It's Tom Brady you're playing with. So every game is winnable. Every game will go down to the wire. You just got to believe and execute what you can. And a lot of that, that myth of a Tom Brady becomes reality because players are going to play harder and not give up because they know who's there at the helm. But ultimately, they just I haven't seen anything from this team so far that says this team's got it this year. They're not really playing a great level of competition, and they're not scoring many points at all before everyone. So, I mean, are they going to win the NFC South? 90% chance right now, especially since they already beat the Saints once. But what does that mean in the NFC playoff picture? It's hard to say because, again, nobody in the NFC has really looked that great besides maybe the Eagles. I mean, but like we said, everybody's been up and down. No one else is putting together a consistent, I'm really good. Everyone else has, you know, gotten some wins, and sure, they're 2-1. The Packers are 2-1, but compared to some of the teams that are 2-1 in the AFC, I wouldn't pick the Bucs or the Packers to go past the first round of the playoffs. They'd be a wild card team right now if they were in the AFC, both of them. So, that's really what it comes down to there. And it's early season, and things will get figured out, especially when you have elite quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. But for, a primetime game, it just really wasn't that great of a game. It came down to the wire, and some of that came down to dumb things like miscues or reason they blew up at, 2-point conversion. That you play and, you have a bunch of guys, doing a lot of motions on your 2-point play that are going to, in a very small amount of time. It just was a setup for failure. I get it's something maybe you're not practicing as much, and they obviously probably had the play in place, but with so many moving pieces and so many guys filling in, you might want to go with a kind of simpler play than, having somebody just have to do, 4 or 5 different motions in order to get the playoff, because that's ultimately what caused it to not go well, is because Tom Brady saw it and Tom Brady was trying to get it all together per what he's allowed to do and supposed to do in these situations in their offense. But there just straight up wasn't time, and then it caused them to try 2-point conversion that, from the 7-yard line is way harder to complete. And that really caused them an opportunity to tie it up, and then who knows what would happen in a overtime kind of situation with Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. So missed opportunity there. These teams will get better, but by how much needs to be seen.
Yeah, 2 names to watch out for the Packers in terms of acquiring wide receivers. Kenny Golladay, who is not very happy in New York, and also Kadarius Toney is also not very happy in New York. So they have they're going to trade him to the Packers. I don't know how much of the salary of Kenny Golladay are they going to eat. I don't know, but they will likely not be Giants for the whole season with how Brian Daboll has run things. But we will get to the Giants here in a couple minutes. One more game to preview before we get to them. We have arguably the worst football game I've seen all season. That includes NFL, college, high school, Pee-wee. We have the Broncos beating the 49ers 11-10. Neither offense could get going in this one. It was awful. Jimmy Garoppolo ran out the back of the end zone to get a safety, a la Dan Orlovsky. Russell Wilson looks like a shell of his former self. It's bad. It's really bad for both these teams, and I think you got to be concerned for either one at this point. It's cool to say, like, hey, maybe the defense played really well, and I do think there's a little bit of that, but for a lot of this, the offense is just, we're not good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I don't know which one's in style points. Which one was safety out of the back of the end zone was worse, Jimmy Garoppolo or Dan Orlovsky's? Dan Orlovsky. So I'll break it down for you. Dan Orlovsky's. He went fully out of the end zone and just like threw the ball down immediately and just went, I can't believe I just did that. Jimmy Garoppolo pretty much has zero awareness that it even happened. Completes the throw and throws an interception that good chance it was going to be a pick six. So I think Jimmy Garoppolo might get the cake there for somebody who actually did I don't know, you can't really call it, I guess it was a net positive play. He actually saved his team 4 points by stepping out of the end zone. Or, maybe probably 5 points. So that's different. Mm-hmm. You want to expect that very much, but just the situational awareness there is bad. Trent Williams, I haven't seen an injury update on what they're looking at or how long he's going to be out, but that was a huge blow in the second half too. Trent Williams got hurt on that play that he stepped out of the end zone, and that really made the offense struggled because the people they started putting in a left tackle, they had to put two different guys in because they were just getting absolutely demolished or, pretty much letting people go unblocked. Looked like a Bengals game for a minute. Ultimately, I mean, the 49ers offense struggled mightily. Um, you know, Jeff Wilson had a decent outing. Deebo Samuel's made George Kittle is back. And it's going to take time for this team to mesh. But if Trent Williams is gone and they can't figure out left tackle, it's going to be hard for them to come back from. The defense is good. They made a lot of plays. Ultimately, they made a lot of big time sacks. Their young safety that's been playing since Jimmy Ward's been hurt has done a really good job as well. So there are a lot of pieces, especially on defense of the 49ers, to be good. In an AFC West, or I'm sorry, NFC West. I mean, right now I can't pick them. I can't really say I'm confident about my Super Bowl pick by any means after this game because it looked awful on their side. They just offense just couldn't get anything going, and G just lacked the awareness to really move the and really get to their side of the field. They were pretty much playing position battle all game. Them and the Broncos would basically get to the 50-yard line, punt it to the other, get it within the 10, and then the other team would get it back at the 50, or they'd score enough just to get there. For somebody who had both fantasy kickers in different leagues, I don't think I've ever been so upset at offenses in my life. But that's enough about the 49ers. Let's talk about the Broncos side of things. Russell Wilson, there's no excuse for how bad he's playing, and really situationally how bad he is playing as well, because it just looks like his awareness is completely gone. He's taken sacks, third down at the, 35, 40-yard line where it's a makeable field goal, and he's taken sacks for a reason. For a quarterback that's supposed to be mobile, he really barely runs. He finally did a little bit in the fourth quarter, and that really helped them ultimately win the game. But for most of the game, I mean, they're just sitting there in the pocket like a statue, taking sacks instead of throwing the ball away, and it's just not good football if you're the Broncos. I mean, Nathaniel Hackett's offense is just not working, and you can hear the Sunday night crew keep saying, well, this is the same thing what happened to Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur. It's the same offense. That's great. There's no guarantee there's going to be success, though. Russell Wilson isn't Aaron Rodgers, not by any means. And I just don't know if maybe Russell Wilson just doesn't have it anymore. I mean, they've got good receivers. They've got good running backs. They've got playmakers, and they've got a decent offensive line. I know the 49ers are a tough defense, but, I mean, even if you're not going to have a great offensive performance, you got to at least know how to extend the drive and how to come away with points. That's what a good quarterback always does is, even if you can't make the play to, convert the third down, you're in field goal range, you've got to know in your head, I cannot take this sack. I don't care. I'm going to extend the play as long as I could, but as soon as somebody gets near me, I'm going to flush out of the pocket, throw it away, and save the sack and get 3 points. Because that's the kind of game it was, too. It wasn't like you had to score a bunch of touchdowns and stay in it. You could score a couple field goals and win this game pretty easily because nobody was getting past the 50. So teams taking too many penalties where it was costing them points, taking sacks where they shouldn't. It was just really sloppy, poor offensive football. And both these teams look like they're not in the playoff hunt right now. The 49ers might be just by default because, again, it's the NFC, so there's an ability that pretty much anybody could make it right now. But if you're the Broncos with the way the AFC is stacked, you don't have a shot right now if you're playing like this.
I agree. One thing to note, a lot of the talking heads are mentioning, oh, well, Jimmy G didn't have a playbook this offseason, and I mean, he's been there for how long? Like, how much is Kyle Shanahan really changing? How much more is he implementing into his system? I really don't think that's an excuse for Jimmy Garoppolo playing poorly. And, I think we just keep the energy same here. If Trey Lance had played like Jimmy Garoppolo played on Sunday Night Football, people would be roasting him because he's he's a young guy who hasn't got a lot of playing time, and just how it goes. So, I don't know. I just think it's just worth noting that I don't think that's a valid excuse. The 49ers, I do think, will turn it around a little bit, but it's far from that so far. All right, Monday Night Football, we had the Cowboys beating the Giants 23-16. A lot of credit for this game goes to the Dallas defense. Micah Parsons is everywhere. Cease, I tweeted out last night, we're not too far off from talking about him being the best player in football. That's how he wrecks games. That's obviously other guys are going to retire, like Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, and even Aaron Donald consider retirement. But he wrecks games. DeMarcus Lawrence had a good game, so that's where all the credit goes for Dallas. Them and the offensive line who cleared up some running holes. Cooper Rush kind of just did his job, and that's all he needed to do. The Giants, on the other hand, Daniel Jones played well. Saquon Barkley played well. I think the offensive line played pretty bad, obviously, and I think the wide receivers dropped a couple key passes here and there. Not going to name names, but someone who got paid a lot of money, who we talked about earlier on the show, maybe getting traded, is one of the culprits. So, I do still like Brian Daboll. I still like everything he's preaching, and I think he might even like Daniel Jones still. But this Cowboys defense came to play in a way that I don't think we've seen in years.
No, and honestly, you start looking at this season, everyone was always been talking about Dak and the offense and how good they're supposed to be. And I mean, somehow, quietly, this Cowboys defense is, I think, the better unit when Dak comes back. A lot of that has to do with just Micah Parsons by himself. He has been absolutely elite. He has an absolutely great game. He's had a string of great games. He was an absolute disruptor against the. I mean, you look at the Buccaneers game, and I mean, it was a slugfest, a defensive slugfest in that one as well. Both offenses really couldn't get much going. So, we're looking at the Cowboys and Dan Quinn's defense right now and going, this is the strength of the team, and maybe this team isn't, counted out the way we thought when Dak got hurt and they lost to the Buccaneers. The defense is good enough. Dan Quinn's creative enough and aggressive enough that they can maybe carry this team in games that they would have won if they had Dak. It might be able to carry him. If Dak comes back healthy at the right time, instead of whatever the hell is going on, where they're basically taking the stitches out already somehow from his broken hand. And there's stuff medically. I don't know how he's getting medically cleared. I don't know what's going on. And I have a feeling that if they do this too quickly and they throw Dak back in there, because they think, oh, hey, we have a chance of, still winning the NFC East. We have a chance of wild card and a playoff berth. You'll be healthy by then. That's great, but he should recover fully before that. Because, one, you put in a guy with a surgically repaired hand, that could go really bad really quick, especially if it's not fully healed. Like turnovers, interceptions, things that the defense, being good, can't necessarily control if you're giving the team good field position because your quarterback isn't healthy. So, big thing with the Cowboys is don't rush Dak back too soon. If he heals something crazily well, that's awesome, but it seems like there's a lot more of people just Dak being like, I want to get back in there, and the Cowboys medical staff just being like, yeah, let's get you back in there, without there really being much thought of long term, should we be doing this for a quarterback we paid all of its money to? And two, is this really going to help the Cowboys win in the short term? Or would we rather him be fully healthy, come back to a team that is, maybe above 500 by week 8? I mean, there's a possibility of 2-1 here. The defense, Micah Parsons keep playing at this rate. It's a distinct possibility. Cooper Rush hasn't looked terrible. It's looked decent as well. And, the offensive line starting to mesh together a little bit better as well. So, I mean, that's a real thought after this game. The Giants, Ryan Dabble has made this team 1,000 times better just by being there. It seems the roster really isn't that different. Sure, there's some disgruntled receivers out there. But at the end of the day, he's getting results with guys you wouldn't really expect. I mean, the receiving core still suffers mightily, but, I mean, ultimately, this game runs through Saquon Barkley in a way he's able to set a tempo as the running back. And then Daniel Jones is really using his feet in this game. He's been very mobile. He's much more athletic than I thought he would be at this point. And he's using his feet to really extend drives, and that's huge because it looks like Brian Daboll's offense is I will use your legs just like I use Josh Allen's. It's not about looking pretty in this offense. Extending drives and getting points ultimately. That's what they care about. They don't care about the big eye-popping stats because they definitely don't have those, especially from a passing game perspective. But, I mean, it's enough to work with. I'm not sold on Daniel Jones by any means because it looks like, they are limited between him and the receiver core with the passing game. It looks like they always will be to a certain point. Is he going to lose them games? I don't think so. He'd be a game manager, but with an offensive coordinator like that, I don't know if you really want a game manager sticking around on your team more than you go roll the dice and try to find an elite quarterback prospect and make New York football good again. But yeah, ultimately, both teams fought really hard. Cowboys defense is for real, and um, honestly, at this point, again, the NFC, I'm not counting them out of the playoff hunt by any means. They were very well in the thick of it. You know, a couple games bounced the right way. You know, they play really good against the Eagles or something, which in the NFC East, people beat teams who they shouldn't beat. You know, by the status of the Rockers, just because it's a rivalry game, they somehow come to play, and the better team loses half the time. So, I mean, there's a chance that Cowboys might not be dead in the water. Um, it is the Eagles. The Eagles have been playing very well, though, so I don't think that's going to happen. But at the very least, the Cowboys are alive and well for a wild card right now, which is crazy to say after Week 1 with Dak going down.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially how bad they looked even with Dak too. I think it just a lot has changed, a lot has gone right, and hopefully Dak gets back quickly and they can make a little run. All right, let's go to the picks for Week 4 now, Cease. The first game is Thursday night. We have some pretty good interest in this one. It is the Miami Dolphins at the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals are favored by 3.5 points in this one. They're wearing their all-white uniforms for the first time ever. It is a whiteout. The city's pretty excited for it after the Bengals were able to rebound against the Jets. Should be a fun one.
Oh, it's going to be super fun. I'm super excited about this game as well. The all whites, the white helmets, people have dreamed of as a Bengals fan for years, and NFL, guidelines for only one helmet is really held back a really cool design. So I'm glad it's finally happening. Even if it's just for one game this year, I hope the NFL allows people to do more and more because I don't understand why not. It just looks cool, gets more eyes on the brand that they might necessarily watch the football game. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, this is a big game for them, and it's a big game for the Dolphins as well. If the Dolphins can start this season undefeated, go 4-0, I mean, they're in the driver's seat, pretty much, almost guaranteed to make the playoffs at 4-0. I mean, the record's there, especially with the 7th seed. I mean, they're pretty much there. They just gotta play throughout. So, I mean, this is a good game for them too. Prime time, Tua, there's definitely a lot of stuff going on in their mind about the whole Tua Burrow debate, about who was better coming out of college, who's had the better career so far. Um, that stuff will definitely be in his head as sure as it'll be in Joe Burrow's head. So, I mean, there's a lot of skin in the game for the Dolphins as well. And, they want to show that they can come and compete after a big game win against the Bills. On the Bengals side, I mean, this is, again, they're 1-2. I mean, it's still do or die. It's a huge critical game for them. Is their season over if they lose to the Dolphins? I'm not going to say that. But again, 1-3 is a hard hill to dig, a hard ditch to dig out of. So ultimately, I'm not going to say it's a must win, but this is a game where they need to be playing very well. If they play like they did the first 2 weeks, it's going to be over real quick, and it's going to be an absolute blowout. But I have a feeling that, a lot of things that Jets game, especially in the fourth quarter with the way they were playing, until they just started running the ball down to bleed out the clock, was let's get the offense back in rhythm. Let's get it back together with some live reps because that's what we're going to need as the season goes on because it's only going to get harder from here. They're at home on a short week, so that definitely helps as well. They've played decently well against the Dolphins in the past. Obviously, this offense looks a lot different than it has in the last couple of years. But I think it's a primetime game. There's a lot of excitement about this game. It's going to be a very heavily Bengals favored crowd as well because, they're playing the Dolphins. So the Dolphins aren't going to travel as well up from Florida. So I think they just have on the line right now. I'm going to pick the Bengals to win at home on a short week as much as it's about that as much as it is about, them being in a dire situation. I think they've gotten a little better. I'm going to pick them to win, and I'll take them the points.
Gotcha. I'm going to take the Bengals to win as well. I think the offensive line showed improvements. I think the short week is very, very important this week that they're at home and able to kind of be used to where they're at and have to travel a bunch for it. So I think they're going to win. I do think the Dolphins keep it close. I'm going to take them with the 3.5 points they're giving me. And I know for the most part, I think the Dolphins can keep it close, but I will say just watch the injuries this week with Tua, who's questionable, with Jalen Waddle, who's questionable. That's why I'm more confident going with the Bengals to win, but I think it's one of those Thursday night games that could get even weird. Who knows? But I think the Bengals win and the Dolphins will keep it within the field goal. We have a first London game this weekend, Cease. The Vikings are taking on the New Orleans Saints. The Vikings are favored by 3 points.
Yeah, it's a London game, so everything you know about these teams, just throw them out the window. I will never bet another London game in my life after some of the things that has happened. Especially they've all been 5 game parlays, and it's always come down to that stupid London game with a heavy favorite losing. So I mean, I'll pick the Vikings on paper. They should win and cover against the Saints team, whose offense has looked not very good. Jameis is hurt and not playing at full speed. Um, but then again, both teams are traveling. It really depends on things like, are both teams doing the right travel schedule? You know, it should be pretty hammered out at this point after the last couple of years. When you get to London, get your body acclimated, have a practice, feel better about it. But there's no guarantee of that. I mean, the Vikings might be missing Dalvin Cook as well, which would be a big loss to them. But I got to pick a Vikings team who's looked pretty good in the young season. They got Jefferson as well. I think it'll come down to ultimately if the Saints offense can really get going against a decent Vikings defense.
Yeah, I'm going Vikings to win and cover as well. I just haven't liked what I've seen out of the Saints the last couple of weeks. I know I picked them to maybe push for a playoff spot this year, but with Jameis hurt, they don't look the same. They lost on the road to the Panthers. Now they're going to go across the pond and play the Vikings, who I think, again, I really like Kevin O'Connell, their head coach. I think he'll have a good game plan for this one. I think that's a lot to deal with. So I'm going to go with the Vikings to win and cover. I think their playmakers can do more than the Saints playmakers can in this game because of the quarterback issues the Saints are having due to Jameis' injury. What we all expected here, we got the Eagles against the Jaguars, two teams we talked about possibly being in the playoffs, possibly being good teams this year. The Eagles are favored by 6.5 at home.
Yeah, I'm going to pick the Eagles to win, obviously. It's at home against Jacksonville. It's I'm going to get them. I'm going to pick them to cover as well in this one. One is it's home. It's going to be a hostile environment for the Jaguars to go into. One I'm not sure they're used to dealing with, especially with the games they play against the teams they play. They're not really playing against nasty fans or. But it's going to be a different environment in Philly, especially with this high level going in. I think the Jaguars are going to contain the Eagles off. I mean, they score a lot of points. They score them in bunches. And I think this Philly defense is a lot so far. And I think, Darius Slay's really going to limit the receivers in the back and the secondary. So Trevor Lawrence is going to struggle a little bit more. And, I mean, the front four for the Eagles is very good as well. Ultimately, I think the Eagles win, and they win by a touchdown.
I have the Eagles winning and covering as well. I am still not super weirded out by the Jaguars being good, but I still think they need to prove themselves a little bit. And I think the Eagles have definitely proven even against some of the bottom teams this year that they can win and they can dominate games. Their defense looks nasty. They had 9 sacks this week. Jalen Hurts looks good again in the MVP discussion for how well he's played and utilized Devontae Smith and AJ Brown. So I think the Eagles win and cover. Jaguars doesn't mean they're a bad team by any stretch. It's just this is a winning tough games back to back, both on the road, is just tough. So I'm going to give them the loss here, but maybe they can bounce back next week. The New York Jets at the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers are favored by 3 points.
Yeah, give me the Steelers to win and cover. Ultimately, I think the Steelers have a better defense. Their offense is very let's just not mess up. Ultimately, I think that'll be enough against the Jets to win. Not a game I'm really looking forward to seeing. Definitely Sunday. How many 1:00 games there are this week? But I think that just Steelers are a well-coached football team. They know what it takes to win. The Jets, are still learning that in a lot of ways. So I think give me the Steelers to win and cover.
I'm going Steelers to win, but I'm going Jets with the points. Cease. I think these teams are very similar in terms of their talent level. I think the Jets probably have a lot more offensive upside. The Steelers have a lot more defensive upside. But at the end of the day, I think the Steelers can maybe win by like 2 points with 1 point. I'm taking a lot of underdogs with the points, but taking the favorite to win the game overall. I just think it's that one of those type of weeks. This is just an even matchup in my eyes, and like I said, I think the Steelers can defend their home turf, and the Jets can keep it close. The Chicago Bears at the New York Giants. The Giants are favored by 3 points. Cease.
Yeah, give me the Giants in this one. The Bears, Justin Fields, I just can't trust right now. There's a lot of things with this offense that just looks off. The passing game is very non-existent. It's just Justin Fields trying to make plays with his legs, and then the running game with the running backs. Defenses look decent for Chicago as well, but ultimately Brian Dable has done a great job as a head coaching debut so far. He gets his team in a place to win each and every week. The Giants' defense isn't super great by any means, but he's just able to really can play good ball control offense that I think the Bears will not be able to capitalize on as well, and I think the Giants will ultimately come out with the win. And I think it's a small spread again, so I think they'll cover.
I'm doing the same thing. I'm going Giants to win, and I'm going the Bears with the points. Same thing as I did last game, I should say. Just think these are two teams that are still trying to find their way. I think the Bears are able to run the ball pretty well, as the Cowboys were able to against the Giants. And on the short week, too, for the Giants, I think it's tough. I do think they win, but I think it'll be close. And I do think that maybe the Bears might let Justin Fields throw the ball this week. Maybe just a little bit. All right, we have the Browns at the Atlanta Falcons. The Browns are favored by 1.5 on the road.
Give me the Browns to win and cover. It's basically a pick 'em at 1.5 points. Um, I think that the Falcons got something going a little bit last week against a very bad Seahawks defense, but they're not going to get the same luxury against the Browns. The Browns have a lot of playmakers on that side of the ball, and they've got a really strong rushing attack too, which will carry their offense. So ultimately, I think Cleveland wins this one by at least a field goal. So winning cover for the Browns.
Winning cover for the Browns for me as well. The offense has actually played pretty well with Jacoby Brissett. The defense is still pretty decent. Do have to mention Myles Garrett was in a car accident last night as we're recording, and he had minor injuries, so just something to monitor. I think with or without him, they are able to go on the road and win this game and cover. The Washington Commanders travel to Dallas to take on the Cowboys, with the Cowboys being favored by 3.5 points.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Cowboys to win and cover here. Commanders just did not look very good last week by any means. They got crushed by the Eagles. I don't think Carson Wentz is going to have a very good game against this Cowboys defense right now. I think that's going to be the real matchup of the game is if Carson Wentz can get a couple sustainable drives and score a touchdown or two in the red zone. The Commanders can win this game because Dallas's offense isn't that great. But ultimately, I don't think he's going to get much going. And I think Cooper Rush and the running attack, it's going to do enough to score a couple points against a not very good Washington Commanders defense because they have looked really bad as well. So I think the Cowboys win. I think the spread is low just because neither team has a really great quarterback. So Dallas, depending on the trend here, Dallas might be a good person to, pick against, pick to cover the spreads because a lot of people are going to be picking not high spreads for them because they don't have a super good quarterback. But Cooper Rush has gotten the job enough done so far. So give me the Cowboys to win cover.
Same pick for me here, Cease. Dallas Cowboys win. They cover. This is a game where I do think that their defensive line, their ability to get pressure, is going to be a key because Carson Wentz has been getting sacked a lot, and that's been causing them to lose games a lot. The offense will get enough done, as you said, that they'll be just fine. And I think they can extend the record to 3-1, kind of bide some more time before Dak gets back and see what happens. The Chargers travel to Houston to take on the Texans. They are favored by 4.5 points on the road.
Yeah, give me the Chargers over the Texans all day and to cover. I don't think it really matters where the Chargers are. I mean, I'm really hoping last year's upset that happened doesn't happen again. I think the Chargers should be very aware of that from last year. I don't think they should be surprised by any means. I think they really want to go out and show this team that they are a much better team than the game they ended up playing. So I think the Chargers win, and they win handedly in this one.
Yeah, another week for Justin Herbert to recover and maybe feel a little better about things with his ribs. Um, I think they want to bounce back from their game against the Jaguars. Yes, they have a bunch of injuries, but I think the Jaguars are a little bit better than the Texans, so I think they'll be able to go on the road and win. And as we know, they don't have the home field advantage that the other teams do, so going on the road isn't as big of a deal for the Chargers as it is for other teams. The Seattle Seahawks at the Detroit Lions. The Lions are favored by 5 at home.
Give me the Lions to win. Five or 5.5.
It is 5.
Um, Give me the Lions. Reasons why: Seattle's having to go to Detroit. That's a far road game for them. Usually they struggle more on the road. Um, I don't think the Lions offense is going to have much trouble with the Falcon or the Seahawks defense. 5 is a lot of points. It worries me a little bit, but ultimately it's, Seahawks are just not good on the road, and the Lions have done enough in a lot of these games. So I don't think it's going to be close, a lot of it, but I think the Lions will away against a team that's just doesn't have a lot of talent on the roster. So give me the Lions to win and cover.
I'm going Lions to win the game, but I'm going Seahawks with the points. That's 5 points against two teams that I think, the Lions I think are a little bit better than the Seahawks. Are they 5 points better? I don't know. I think the Seahawks are going to get back to it in terms of running the football and trying to establish the run and maybe kill the clock and keep it a lower scoring game, which favors the Seahawks. And the Lions will be trying to protect Jared Goff with that good offensive line and spread the ball out. We'll just see who wins that battle of wills. But I do think the Lions win and the Seahawks are able to keep it within that 5 points. We mentioned we're going to be interested in the AFC South race, Cecil, and this game could mean a lot by the end of the year. We have the Tennessee Titans visiting the Indianapolis Colts, and the Colts are favored by 3.5 points.
Yeah, I'm going to go Colts to win, but I'm going to take the Titans with the points here. I think it's going to be a super close game. If it's over a field goal, that's kind of my decision making here. That's why I'm going to take them to cover. I'm going to hedge my bet, basically. Colts have a better roster. They have a better, kind of more complete team that can do a bunch of different things. They have a strong running game. They have a quarterback who's supposed to be good. How good is Matt Ryan at this age? It can be debatable at times, but they should have Michael Pittman back at this point. So it'll be a better passing game as well. And it's really going to be the Colts defense, how well they can bottle up Derrick Henry, or if Mike Vrabel doesn't get too cute and decides to give the ball to Ryan Tannehill too many times. Give the ball to your workhorse back. Let him set the tempo for this game, and eat the time of possession. Ultimately, keep your defense fresh against the offense for the Colts that is very Jekyll or Hyde. So I'm going to think the Colts are going to be able to pull it out, though, because they have a better quarterback, but it's going to be a close one.
Yeah, I'm going Colts to win with Titans with the points as well, Cecil. Just two teams that I think are somewhat evenly matched, but we really haven't seen the best of them yet, so it's hard to get a good read on this game. The Colts have this rough start, then they beat the Chiefs. The Titans have the rough start, then they beat the Raiders, who are 0-3, but I think the Raiders are probably better than the record says they are. This is a game where I don't know if there's a way to bet this. I honestly don't, but if there's a way to bet whoever the first team to score wins, I'd bet on this game, because whoever gets the first score, you better believe they're going to pound the rock with their star running back. They're going to try to shorten the game. They're going to try to eat that clock and just let their defense be rested. That's what I would do, but I don't know. I think it's too close to call, so that's why I'm taking the Colts because they're at home, and the Titans with the points. This is another game people have been waiting for. It's the Bills at the Ravens in this one. Two teams that are looking really, really good to start the year.
What's the spread?
3.5 to the Bills.
Yeah, give me the Bills a winning cover here. Like I kind of alluded to earlier, Mark Jackson looks amazing out there, but the Ravens defense has really let him down a lot of times, and not really been a great shutdown defense. I think Josh Allen's going to come out angry, and I think for a lot of points. The Ravens and Lamar Jackson will score a good amount, but ultimately, I got to pick the a Bills team that can score in bunches in this one game. But I think by the end, I think the Bills will just be up by a touchdown, and Lamar just won't be able to really get the game tying or game winning drive. So 3.5 points is enough for me to cover.
I'm going the Bills to win and the Ravens with the points here. Again, a lot of games where I think teams are similar or for whatever reasons, I don't know, but the lines being the way they are. Ravens are at home. They're the 3.5 point underdogs. They've been playing very well this season. They are getting healthier, while I believe the Bills are probably getting less healthy with Micah Hyde being out. I just think this is just going to be a close game, and I think the more help they get with J.K. Dobbins getting back and getting his feet under him, and maybe Gus Edwards in a couple weeks, it's just going to help this Ravens team. The defense hasn't been all that good, but they can win a shootout. I mean, they were right there with the Dolphins. They can score some points. Lamar's on fire. I'm going to take the Ravens with the points, even though I think the Bills win. All right, the Arizona Cardinals at the Carolina Panthers, and the Panthers are favored by 2 points in this one, which is kind of surprising, Cease. But there is not a Call of Duty beta weekend this weekend, so Kyler Murray might be ready to play. I don't know.
Yeah, give me the Cardinals to win, and I'll take the points, obviously. But, I mean, the Panthers are not as good as the Cardinals, ultimately. Things to work on. I mean, not that the Cardinals don't, but they have a much better quarterback in Kyler Murray than Baker Mayfield. There is no beta weekend this week, so he'll be a full week to study the playbook. They've got, it's just like you look at this game, and I feel like it's kind of an overreaction from Vegas. I get the Cardinals have to travel from Arizona to Carolina, but I think it'll be a close game, but I think the Cardinals are going to win it, and I'm pretty confident in that. And for them to give them points like that, I mean, I'll take that all day. I just think there are a lot of things on paper, but the Cardinals can just, even though they don't execute, they don't do very well. They just are much more talented. Meanwhile, Carolina, they're going to have to pretty much do everything very well and execute well the whole game in order to win. And I just don't see that necessarily happening with Baker Mayfield and Matt Rule, that head coach quarterback combo. So give me the Cardinals.
Yeah, the only thing that's really making me think about it is the Cardinals having to travel across the country. Other than that, I mean, they're a better team. They haven't played well this year. I still have my doubts about them long term and Cliff Kingsbury long term, but I think they can go on the road and win. If you ask any Panthers fan about this, they would say take the Cardinals and take the money and run when you win that bet, because it's just weird that the Panthers would be favored. All right, the Packers and the Patriots. The Patriots travel to Green Bay. The Packers are favored by 10.5 points, and we are not expecting to see Mac Jones in this game.
All right, so it's the Brian Hoyer game then.
Oh boy.
10.5 points. This is going to be a slam dunk for the Packers, but I mean their offense has just not been that good. Yeah, well, Brian, I got to do it. Even with Brian Hoyer quarterback, even with Jones, I would say there's no way it'll be a low-scoring game for both teams. But with Brian Hoyer at the helm, I don't know how many points the Patriots going to ultimately score, and I think it'll be similar to the Bears-Packers game in a lot of ways. That's kind of level with, honestly, the Patriots without being a little worse than the Bears. So give me the Packers to win and cover. But anytime I see a 10-point spread against a backup QB, especially considering how hard points have been to come by for the Green Bay Packers so far.
Yeah, I will say it is very weird we see, even with the backup quarterback, that we see a double-digit point spread from two teams that were in the playoffs last year. That's definitely surprising to me. I'm still going to go with the Packers to win and cover. I think they know they need to use this game as one where they can let loose, get some of the new guys even more involved, whether that's Romeo Doubs, even more so, whoever it might be. But they played a rough game against the Buccaneers. They didn't have much offense. The Buccaneers have a good defense. Patriots have an okay defense too, but I think they know they need to get the offense flowing a little bit better for the future of this team this season. I think they'll be able to do so, and I think they can win and cover. All right, the Denver Broncos at the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders are favored by 2 points, Cease.
Give me the Raiders at home. They are 0-3. They are the only 0-3 team. But, man, I mean, they've looked better than a lot of the one-win teams out there. They have more pieces. They've got Derek Carr. I think they'll right the ship against a Broncos team that looked atrocious on Monday night. It's a short week for them, and they have to travel to Las Vegas. I think it's going to be close, but if it's under a field goal, I think that's the margin of error for the Raiders to win. So give me the Raiders to win and cover. I think that the Raiders' offense gets going a little better in this game.
I do too. I can't, in good honesty, take the Broncos. I know they're 2-1, but they're going into a tough environment. They aren't that good. They haven't looked good, at least if you want to put it that way. And they have a lot to figure out. Nathaniel Hackett has some game management issues. Josh McDaniels has been awful for the Raiders too, but you have to think they get off the snide here. They go 1-3 rather than 0-4. That's what I'm picking. I have not seen anything out of the Broncos that is worth noting this year. All right, the Kansas City Chiefs at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is on Sunday Night Football, Cease. The Chiefs are favored by 2 on the road.
Yeah, ultimately I'm going to get the Chiefs to win and win by a good amount because I just don't see anything from the Bucs offense so far. And that's really concerning to me as well. So, I mean, that's really the deciding point. I don't think it should be that close of a spread right now. I get it's Tom Patrick Mahomes and all the hype around that. And, there should be a lot of spotlight on it, and people are going to play, better than maybe they would against another. But, I mean, you look at this game against the Packers, and the Chiefs' defense isn't as good as the Packers is right now. But, I mean, they have a good offense. They have a quarterback that's actually scoring points and things of that nature. Andy Reid's able to things up with next to nobody. So I just can't in confidence really say this is going to be a super close game against a Bucs team that's really been underperforming. Sure, they get Mike Evans back, but give me the Chiefs to win and cover.
Me too. I took the Packers last week because I just don't like the Bucs this year so far. They have the injuries piling up, and I think the Chiefs can go on the road. They know they need to win this game after losing to the Colts. You never want to lose back-to-back games in the NFL. That's not usually a good recipe for success. So I think they'll open up the playbook. They'll get the offense flowing here. The Bucs have a good defense, but at the end of the day, the offense hasn't shown they're going to be able to do anything to be able to keep up with the Chiefs. So I'm going Chiefs to win and cover. Monday Night Football, we have the Los Angeles Rams at the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers are favored by 2.5 points.
How is that possible?
I have no idea.
I feel like that line's going to change a lot. That must have just been. But, I mean, okay, give me the win, and I'll take. I like the 49ers. Maybe get better with Jimmy G, sure, but if Trent Williams is hurt and out, they don't have a shot. It's just going to be that easy. Their left tackle situation is just atrocious without him. They need help right now on offense. The Rams are going to come to town. They're going to win. I'm not going to say they're going to blow them out, but I'm wrong because I believe to a certain extent, I picked them in the Super Bowl. I think they have a good defense. Playing well I think it'll be kind of close, but the nature of these matchups usually are after what happened on Sunday night is just points. I'll run the bank with the Arizona Cardinals one. I might have to go to a setting is legal. I'm not going to say which one or where I'm at currently. Nor am I going to say I'm going to do any of that because that would be technically illegal. But yeah, if you're in a betting state, for the love of God, put a 2-game parlay on those spreads right there, and you can just make money off of them. Just take the money.
Yeah, I was thinking of something similar at this rate because these are the two lines that just don't make sense, which also makes me second guess myself. But at the same time, it doesn't add up. As we mentioned with the Cardinals, they're just a better team than the Panthers. And in this one, again, this is the Rams do not look their best yet, and they've still haven't made up for some of the losses they've had this offseason, whether it's Von Miller or I mean, any number of players. I mean, OBJ or Andrew Whitworth, whoever it is, they don't look like they made up for that. But the 49ers look so bad, even at home. I mean, I don't know if I could in good faith pick them, which means they're probably gonna end up winning. But I don't know if there's like a reason someone can give me why the 49ers will beat the Rams without citing like historical records or something stupid of that nature. So I'm going Rams to win. I think they can cover the spread on the road. They seem like a much better team. That defense is pretty nasty, and I don't know if the 49ers will be able to get much done offensively. I know Kyle Shanahan's a good offensive coach, but it hasn't shown up this year. We'll see if it does in this game that's coming up here. All right, that's the last pick of the week. Cecil, any final thoughts?
No, I'm super excited for Thursday night. I'm hoping the Bengals win this one and make a statement to really fix their season. And other than that, let's make a trip to the casino. Let's put some money on those two games because I don't know when Vegas is going to wake up and change that spread.
Yeah, it's very, very true. All right, my duty to apologize any technical difficulties we have here. We're working through it. We're low budget here, but we're doing our best, trying to get management to put more time and effort into this stream. We'll see what we can do in the future. For now, if anyone just listening, you can subscribe, whether that's we're listening on this podcast or it's watching on YouTube. Every like, subscribe helps us out as we try to do this every single year, grow this show. For now, thanks for listening. We'll see everyone next week.
Thanks, guys.